Hey guys, this is David Negron Jr. I guess they call me a professor, but okay. Anyways, I am a storyboard artist. You get to see my face, I think, for the first time, unless you are in my other classes that I pitched to Nebraska back early in, I think it was October when I was out there. But anyways, I'm sure you guys are freezing out there. Right now, I'm in California. It's about 80 degrees and pretty nice, so I won't rub that in any further than that. I got all your 12-up storyboards from most of you. There's still a couple of stragglers out, but they'll catch up, so I'm not worried about that. On the boards, everybody did really well. I think we've got a good group of kids, I think, that or students. The main thing is that some of you are real artists, and some of you are in other categories like editing and cinematography, directing, things like that. So what we're going to do is keep moving forward. I still want you to draw as much as you can. Just any type of drawing, any type of work I can look at, and I can give you ideas on how that's going to work as far as storytelling, because that's really what I want to punch hard in this particular session, is to make sure that we are telling story through visuals and through storyboards. So next up, what I want you to do is take those 12 drawings that you did, and I want you to add arrows to them. And let me tell you a little bit about the arrows. There's a little bit of a read-up that you can read that I posted, but I think what you need to know about arrows is they really help other people read your drawings. Most people that read storyboards are visual and they can get it, but the arrows aren't drawing, they aren't people, and they see arrows as something like, you know, a road sign or something that's very clear to them, and they know what they mean. Sometimes when I put arrows on the outside of the frames, I'm indicating which way the camera is moving. Either it's pushing in or it's pulling out, it's rotating, it's got some kind of a weird move to it. So usually those go on the outside of the frame. And sometimes I'll write like a little note inside the arrow that says tracking, dolly shot. It might say, camera shaking, handheld. It might say Steadicam, which is a piece of camera equipment. And I call out things like that just to get people to say and look at the drawing and say, okay, he's thinking about the camera's really moving here. So I have to think about that when I'm reading the storyboards. The other arrows that I put are the inside of the frame, which are the action. The action could be anything from an actor stepping to the right, stepping to the left, moving in and out. It could be a car coming down a street. It could be something falling from the sky. So use those arrows on the inside. So that's camera arrows and action arrows, both those arrows. And it's kind of hard to in black and white tell which is which. And I learned a technique early on with my dad where we did red arrows were the colored red arrows were the action of the frame. So anything from a ball rolling down a street, which would have a red arrow, to a blue arrow, which meant this is what the camera's doing, and the blue arrow is panning and following the ball. So go ahead and add those arrows. Don't worry about the color right now because I can read them. I'm pretty good about it. So just give me some arrows and put some notes, and let me help me think about your picture and why you want to put some motion into a shot. Really think about why the camera's moving, why you want the camera to move. Do you really want to push in on somebody, or do you really want to pull away? There's a couple of quick things I can just tell you right now is that when you're pulling away from somebody, like an actor or something, you're kind of leaving them. It gives us the impression that we're just leaving them. And when you're pushing in, it also gives the impression that you are paying more attention to what they're saying or their thoughts. So you might want to, if someone is just there sitting there and they're thinking, you might just want to do like a slow little push in on them because they are thinking, and it gives the audience an idea just by the camera movement that the people are thinking, the actors. A lot of guys, they like handheld because handheld kind of gives you excitement. It moves the frame a lot, and what it does is it keeps you from just being so still on somebody. So they'll do cameras that go all the way around, or they'll do, and there is an emotion to the camera movement. So if the camera is tracking all the way around somebody, you feel like if I'm sitting here and the camera's coming this way, you feel an emotion just because of the speed, of the camera. So the camera has a language, and with the arrows, you can tell them what language you're trying to say with the camera. There's different ways that the camera is very valuable, and I always try and put movement into shots, especially nowadays. But think about this as well. If you've got something that is boring, something that wants to look boring, something that wants to look calm, the shot should not move. It should be just a still, locked-on shot. And a director told me one time, he says, boring can be really interesting. It's just how you look at it and how you want the audience to perceive something. Usually in big westerns, you're just back wide for these ginormous shots because you want to take in the scenery and you want to take in the beauty and you want to see little tiny figures moving across the screen, and that gives you this giant, landscape that really sells Western and how big they are. So lens choice is very important when you're shooting, when you're drawing storyboards, when you're thinking about using something in an edit. You might want to cut to a big wide shot. I remember I was working on a film, Clear and Present Danger, and we had laid out this whole sequence where Harrison Ford was being shot at, and there was all these buses and Suburbans, big action sequence that we shot down in Mexico. And so I'm doing all the storyboards for this. Not, we haven't shot anything yet, and we're trying to figure out where people are, placement, action, a lot of action, a lot of gunfire. And then the director, Philip Noyce, he goes, well, let's cut now to a high top angle, really high. And I just thought it was odd because we were just like in all this action, super intense, and then we want to cut to a high wide angle. And I go, well, why are we doing that? And he goes, every once in a while you got to give the audience a rest. They need to go, wow, okay, you just hit me with a ton of stuff, now I just need to take a breather. And then they cut back in and they're back into all the action and everything else. So you got to really think about all your shots, all your layouts. And what I like to do, and I'm going to take you through a process right after this of how I break down a sequence. So stay tuned for that, and then it'll show you how I use some research and things like that to really, before I even do one particular drawing. So that'll be coming up next. Okay, so I'm going to go through a storyboard layout, basically what I do and how I prepare for meetings and things like that, so that you can be kind of aware of what's going on. This particular project was done for Inhumans, which is a TV show. It was a DC comic project, or Marvel TV. I don't want to confuse those. I work for both companies, so I got to be really careful when I say DC or Marvel. But anyways, we're looking at a sequence. It's the opening sequence of the film. I've met with the director. What they do is they give you a script. They give you, this one's called episode 1. It's the pilot, so it's just a big opening sequence. This one is a little bit different because they wanted to open up in IMAX, and IMAX is a larger format compared to your standard 240, which is 16 by 9, which is what most of your TV shows are going to be, feature films are going to be. So we're actually opening in a theater on IMAX, which is cool. It's kind of a new thing for a TV show to actually do that, and you get 26% more image. So great. Anyways, so before I even start to draw, I kind of talk to the art department and find out if they've got any plans, any drawings of the sets, any ideas of what stuff's going to look like. They usually don't, because it's usually pretty early on, and with TV, it's very difficult to everybody to get up to speed. You're always behind on TV because TV's shot so fast, and if you do get something, you just got to be lucky you have something to look at. And we do little indications of where people are on the set, so that when I draw, I kind of know that, these are some of the figures and different things like that. So this is a barn, and we mark the little character with a little an M or a C for their name, so we kind of know where they are. And that just kind of helps me get an idea how big the set is and things that are going on. Sometimes as they go further along, I start to do a few other drawings and more computer rendered things, so you get a little bit better idea of what the sets are starting to look like. Production designer, I thought he did a really cool job with limited funds and the amount of money and amount of time and everything else that they had to do with this show. I think they were looking pretty good, and this was really good information for me. I got some scale in here to see how big the set's going to be, and it helps me to figure out some angles for camera, things like that. So they try and supply me with as much as they can, and so I can get a pretty good idea of what some of these sequences look like. So generally what I do is I'll take a read of the script, I'll sit down with the director, and we'll start talking about this big opening sequence that he wants to do, set the stage for the picture. We're in space, there's a rocket, it changes a trajectory, a moon comes into view, and this is all about establishing that these characters live on the dark side of the moon. So after I've read this, I sit down with him and we start talking, and I start doing some rough sketches. Not those. That's my dog. Here we go. Some rough sketches, and start thinking about the way the sequence is going to work. So these are pretty hard for anybody to read but myself, because they're basically just shorthand notes, and I've got little scribbles of reverse angles, close-ups. This is a quick drawing I did of the rover just while he was there, so I could say, okay, we got a rover that's going on the moon. Does it look something like this? And then, you know, got different cameras in different places on it. So we've got just real rough drawings, just trying to talk through the sequence, and rover moving around a rock, and there's just information that he's given me about how things are moving and how he wants to cut the sequence. I usually, you know, sometimes we just go so fast, and I'm just trying to write down some notes and figure a few things out. I haven't looked at this thing in about a year, so now I'm going, okay, what was that all about? But, you know, right here, we're looking at black space, and we see a rocket enter frame, and then as we pull back, we see a satellite, we pull back through a satellite, then we see the moon, then we see the Earth. So all these are just little thumbnail sketches, just trying to figure out, you know, the scope of the film, or that opening sequence. So this goes into something else. So basically what I did is I went away and I did some drawings for him to try and figure out how this was going to work, and this is my first pass. These are drawn digitally on my digital storyboard tablet from Wacom, but you get an idea of you know, some of the detail that I was putting in onto some of these boards. And this is just to get us talking, because I like to just give them stuff as fast as I can and start talking about stuff so that we can make changes, make adjustments. Because the longer I hold on to storyboards, the less time we have to work. And I'll even show him rough drawings, because the rough drawings help us to you know, cut and edit and decide what we want to shoot. So this is the opening sequence. We're traveling through clouds, we're heading towards space, we start to see some stars, and we see the stars, and then we see the nose cone of the rocket enter frame. As it goes into frame, we kind of pull back. I got some arrows, we're pulling back. And then we pull right past a satellite. Satellite comes past camera. We get further away, and now we see the relationship of the moon and the Earth, and the satellite heading toward, or the rocket heading toward the moon. Then we got another shot on the moon. We got some arrows, so we're moving up on the moon like this. And as we do that, we see the Earth and the moon, and we see the rocket coming at us, and as it comes at us, it slows, and then a door hatch opens. We got like an extreme close-up, you know, just something opens up, and then something falls out. So we're on a top shot of the moon, looking straight down on the moon. We see something falling toward it. Then we go to this big old wide shot, you know, 2001, Space Odyssey, Blade Runner, whatever, and you start to see just a little object dropping. Locked off, no movement, solitude, just letting it just happen. We cut back on the Earth's surface, and all of a sudden, you know, something lands. I shake the page because the camera's also going to shake too. And then something opens up. We don't know what it is. And then we cut, and now we're somewhere on the Earth, on the moon, sorry, on the surface of the moon. It's kind of wide angle shot, kind of looks kind of odd, and all of a sudden this shadow comes over, you don't know what it is, and then you hear this tractor sounding noise, and we pull back. As we get a little wider, we reveal that it's the Land Rover that is moving across on the moon's surface, and it moves off into the distance. We cut back even wider, and we see it smaller, wider and wider, just to get a feeling of boom, boom, boom. It's really small on this enormous planet. Then we cut back wide to a top shot here, and as we pull back, we've got it's like a POV. It's probably from the capsule that was still up in the air. As we pull back, we go right into NASA, and these are called transitions, when you transition from one particular scene to another particular scene. And this is an art in itself, trying to figure out what's a really cool transition. Sometimes they'll change the background and keep the people in the foreground, and you're into another scene. So transitions are really important because it tells the audience that you're going from one scene to another scene, but it's also making it seamless so that you don't lose your attention. Sometimes when you cut to another scene, it's like, where are we? What's going on? And if you don't have a smooth transition into another scene, you're lost as a viewer. So we're pulling back even further, pulling back, and we see the wide shot of NASA and all the computers and everything. The girl looks to the monitor. Then we see the cart coming around a rock area. This is a low angle, and I've got like a little dolly move coming this way as the cart's coming around, coming toward us. See the arrow coming toward us. We've got back to NASA. We see a guy, you know, moving the controls around, hits a few buttons. She tells him something, I forget what. We got a top shot looking down, just a little bit different angle, and see it come around this corner. And then all of a sudden it runs into something. As it runs into something, there's like a vibration as it hits a clear barrier. And then we got a close-up of it just kind of bouncing back and forth on the barrier. She's going, what's going on? Then we cut back to, I think I did like a little rough drawing over her, and seeing that through the rover's cameras, we see nothing in front of it. So they move the rover a little bit more further, and as they're around it, and as they try to move it, we start to see the shadow come up on it. Shadow comes up on it, then you've got like a low angle behind the rover, pushing in, pushing in, pushing in, and that tells us, okay, something is creeping up on our rover. And as we cut back to a clean POV, we suddenly see this giant hoof, like a horse hoof, come in and kick the camera, which brings it to snow. She turns and goes, oh my gosh, something just hit our camera. What's on the moon that could do that? They kind of lost me when we saw a hoof. I just kind of went, okay, that's what this movie's about. So anyways, there is a comic that's in Humans. I should pull that out, but I don't. So if you wanted to look at the actual comic book, you could check it out. It's called Inhumans. So that's kind of a good overview of what I'm up against every time I go into a meeting. My presentation, I did all these probably in about a day and a half, all those finished drawings. And then I went back for another meeting, talked him through one more time, and then I think I probably had one more day to finish everything and send it in, and I was already getting briefed on another sequence at the same time, so that I could come back with roughs for that for the next meeting. TV's very fast. They want stuff right away, and I don't care. I like to draw fast. I'm not really a renderer, so when it comes to rendering, it just feels like it's a little bit slower to me. So I'd rather like lay out sequences, trying to figure out what's the best action, and then move on. Okay, and to wrap it all up, lesson 2, just go ahead and get those arrows on those drawings, get the send it all into Dropbox. I think Dropbox is working out okay. I hope you guys are okay with that. Some of you guys are throwing it into Canvas, some of you are throwing it into an email sent to me. So let's try and all focus on getting it into Dropbox. There's a new folder there. It says lesson 2. So, you know, drop everything into there, and after I have a look at it, we're going to go on. But I think mainly this whole lesson 2 is really thinking about how that camera moves and how that camera has a reason for movement. And you know, if you've got questions, you want to Skype, you want to email me, go for it. You know, I'm around. I'm working on a couple films right now, but you know, don't worry about that. Just if you've got something you want to talk about, Skype's great because I can see you face to face. So hopefully we can set something up for that. And just go ahead and shoot me an email and say, hey, look, I've got this time between 4 and 5 or on Wednesday, and I'll look at my schedule, and if I can work it in, I'll shoot you an email back, and I'll say, okay, let's do it, and then I'll give you a Skype and we'll talk. Okay, guys, thanks.